Hi there and welcome. Thank you for being a part of the first live stream for Atlas Water and Electric on this celebration of Earth Day. I'm Michaela Pereira. Ahead, we're going to introduce you to this groundbreaking technology, which could very well be a watershed moment in achieving sustainability. Ahead, you'll meet the founders of the company, you'll learn how the AW system functions, and you'll hear their ambitious plans to address the climate and global water crisis. All right, allow me to introduce you to Medgar Boston, who is the CEO of Atlas Water and Electric. Nice to have you here to talk about
Thank
the
you.
AW. It feels a little complex to me. If you were to explain the technology to my mother, how would you do that?
Well, I would tell Mom that the atmospheric wind extractor is not much more complex than a bicycle. 85% of the parts, as Brian said before, are off the shelf. And the elements could have been built at any time. I've had these thought experiments that I played around with to think about if I had dropped all into a particular time period, would it have functioned? And I was able to go back in my thought experiment as far back as Roman times.
You're kidding.
Because the Romans built aqueducts, they had complex machinery, they had flywheels, which is one of the main components. Windmills have been around forever. So they would have been able to produce water from compressed air because they could have built a compressor. Now, they didn't know how to use electricity, but the functionality of the device would have been there.
That's remarkable. Listen, it's fascinating to me to think by trade you're a project director. You have been involved in all sorts of large scale projects. You got involved, if I understand it correctly, in shortly after its inception, some 12 years ago. You've been CEO now for 5 years. As CEO, what are your goals? What's your mission?
Well, the mission is to see if we can take this technology around the world in a way that will allow us to have the greatest impact on the greatest amount of people.
Understood.
Right? In so much as that what we want to do is we want this technology to be used where it's needed most and not to be exploited by bad actors, so to speak.
I understand. And that's an important aspect when you're dealing globally. Look, the ambitions of in terms of the short-term goals, they're fairly lofty. How do you plan on meeting those goals?
Well, we have a really well-established team. We have team members already in Africa. We have some team members in the South Pacific. We have great team members here in the United States. So we're going to attack the global implementation of all in an inclusive way. We want to use the population where the technology is needed. We want to use that expertise in those countries to help us help them.
We heard from John McCrimmon about some of the expansion plans in Africa. And in addition to that, you're interested in exploring addressing the environmental and social impact of the project in various African nations. I want you to address that, what your ideas are there.
Well, I think the first thing, the most important thing, is to see if we can affect change where there are places with severe drought. See if we can affect change where there's need for me, there's 4 pillars of any successful state, right? Energy security, national security, meaning military, health, how healthy is your population, right? And food security. So all addresses 2 of those, energy and food.
The 2 pillars that you're able to help
Yeah.
fulfill the other 2
Yes.
things, actually. It all
Right.
goes hand in hand.
Exactly.
Doing international business is always complex, as we know. There are rules to comply with in the nation that you're doing business with. How do you navigate that?
Well, we find and locate really experienced partners, right? We can't go into a country and insert ourselves into that population. We have to locate partners, and we work closely with the U.S. Embassy to help facilitate and navigate through some of the regulations in our country and make sure we're in compliance here and also in compliance in the country by using the trained lawyers, the trained accountants, the trained engineers that are in that country already that want to come work with us. So that's how we do that.
You have fairly lofty ambitions beyond the immediate future of AW.
Well, yes. So I have these thought experiments, and like Brian said earlier, we scrub carbon, right? One of the problems I think in with regard to climate change is the amount of carbon that's released, and if we're scrubbing carbon, we've actually run numbers, and we looked at, as an example, Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is one of the largest oil companies in the world, if not the largest.
Okay.
They produce millions of barrels of oil, and each barrel of oil produces X amount carbon. So we ran the numbers, and I had the guys run the numbers. We ran the numbers, and we figured out if we had 7,000 of our largest oil systems around North Africa and the Sahel, the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, we would be able to scrub enough carbon to make oil and gas carbon neutral. So that's a lofty goal. So I would like to partner with every oil company and use our systems to scrub carbon, right? And then we can make gas and oil carbon neutral.
My goodness. So you talk about global efforts, global ambitions. Had you originally set your sights on Lesotho?
No, our original plan was to only work in California. California has the fourth largest economy in the world. We have very large employers. We have a huge need for electricity and water. So my plan was to exclusively work in California. I would like to start buying decommissioned power plants and recommission those power plants to renewable energy. I would like to buy nuclear power plants. There's a couple of nuclear power plants in California. I would like to see those. We would buy those and retrofit those with renewable energy. Those are my plans. Those are my ambitious plans.
How did Africa come into the picture?
Well, I happen to be fortunate enough to be invited, included in a trade mission in Kenya. And I met some wonderful people from the U.S. Commerce Department. And that started a ball rolling with people we met. Then John volunteered to go into Lesotho. And so that's how it happened. And so, whatever I had planned didn't necessarily work out, but that's okay. So I'm happy where we are.
It seems to me it goes beyond this amazing, groundbreaking technology. You seem to hope that it's going to have an impact beyond just energy in these nations where you have the office.
Well, see, we're starting in new countries from scratch. So we actually have an opportunity to create and change a paradigm in how business is done. And so I like the idea of creating an idea lab where we empower the young people, not just with scholarships, but the ability to create, have creative spaces for children, have daycare for working parents, because we're a 24-hour company. So we want to give everybody the opportunity by providing daycare. And a lot of people, like most of us, are aging, and we have aging parents. So we can offer daycare not just for kids, but for aging parents. And so those are the things that I can create from scratch, because we're doing this from scratch. So that's what my plans are.
Lofty, ambitious, but also really exciting. A pleasure to speak with you. Medgar Boston, CEO of Atlas Water and Electric.
Thank you.